You have to be very honest. And from the very beginning, I said, I think I even said this to my mom, I'm never going to be dishonest in my song. Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac created Rumours, one of the best-selling albums ever made. Their songs topped charts worldwide. They toured the world together. Fans screamed their names. Then one night, everything changed. She already gave them hundreds of chances. She forgave countless times, but everyone has a breaking point. Hers came after 40 years. Now she refuses to share a stage with them, and you would be shocked to know the story behind this decision. Stevie Nicks was born on May 26, 1948, in Phoenix, Arizona. Her real name was Stephanie Lynn Nicks. But as a little girl, she couldn't say Stephanie properly. Instead, she said Teedy, and that soon became Stevie. It stuck. Nobody knew that this cute nickname would one day be known around the world. From the very start, Stevie had music in her life. Even as a baby, she was drawn to sound. Her family was religious, but her real church was music, and the first person to guide her in it was her grandfather, A.J. Nicks. He wasn't famous, but he played country music and rode trains to sing at bars and pool halls. He also played pool to make money. When Stevie was just 4 years old, he taught her to sing duets with him. Their first song together was Are You Mine? And in a way, music really did become hers. By age 5, she was already performing in front of people. Her grandfather even built her a guitar by hand. Stevie later said that he wasn't a great musician, but was good at writing songs. Funny enough, that's exactly how she would describe herself one day, too. Her father had a job with Greyhound that kept the family moving. They didn't stay in one place for long. Stevie grew up in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Utah, and California. Each time she made new friends, she had to leave them behind. Her mom told her to make friends fast and promised there would always be a better house. Stevie felt like a traveler, never staying still. Years later, she called herself a nomad in one of her songs, and it made sense. That kind of life made her flexible. It prepared her for the music world where nothing stays the same for long. When she turned 16, her parents gave her a huge gift, her first guitar. It was a Goya, and it cost a lot of money back then, around $1,000. That would be more than $9,000 today. She'd only been taking lessons for 6 weeks when her teacher left for Spain, but her parents bought the guitar anyway. On her 16th birthday, sitting in her room, Stevie wrote her first real song. It was called I've Loved and I've Lost. It was about a boy she loved who picked her best friend instead. The lyrics were simple, but full of emotion. And after finishing that song, Stevie felt it deep inside. This was what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. From that day forward, whenever she played music in her room, her family knew not to disturb her, not even for dinner. Stevie didn't just write songs, she listened to them too. Her grandfather once gave her 150 vinyl records filled with songs by the Shirelles, the Shangri-Las, and Martha Reeves. She loved the sound of 1960s R&B and pop. When she was in high school in Southern California, she joined a band called the Changing Times. It was her first real group, inspired by the Mamas and the Papas. But the biggest moment came when her family moved again, this time to Palo Alto. Stevie transferred to Menlo Atherton High School for her senior year. Stevie Nicks didn't plan on meeting anyone special that night in 1966. She was just 18, a high school senior who had recently transferred to Menlo Atherton in California. It was a Wednesday, and she went to a church meeting mostly for social reasons. Then she saw him, a 17-year-old with curly hair and deep blue eyes, playing California Dreamin' on guitar. His name was Lindsey Buckingham. Without thinking much, Stevie walked over and started singing along. Her voice blended perfectly with his. It was just one song, one moment, but that spark would shape their lives forever. They didn't talk much after that night. A whole year passed before their paths crossed again. Lindsay was playing in a band called Fritz, a psychedelic rock group with a problem. They had just lost 2 vocalists. He remembered the girl from church with the haunting voice. He called Stevie and asked her to join. She said yes. From 1967 to 1971, they performed side by side, not as lovers, but as bandmates. They played at legendary venues in San Francisco, opening for giants like Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix. Stevie soaked in every bit of stage magic she could. Off stage, she studied speech communication at San Jose State University, always keeping a backup plan. If music didn't work, she'd become an English teacher. I think, had we not moved from San Francisco to L.A., both of us feel that we would have gotten married and stayed there. And we also believe that we would have still been famous. But the band didn't last. Fritz broke up in 1971, and that's when everything changed. Stevie and Lindsay, now free from the group, decided to keep playing together, and suddenly the relationship shifted. They fell in love. Stevie dropped out of college, supported by her father's blessing, and made a plan with Lindsay to move to Los Angeles. But just as they were ready to leave, Lindsay got mononucleosis. Their move was delayed nearly a year. Stevie stayed and took care of him. In those quiet, tired months, they wrote songs, crafted harmonies, and built the sound that would one day make them famous. They finally made it to L.A. in late 1972. In 1973, they released their first album, Buckingham Nicks. It was bold. It was raw. The cover showed them partially nude, something Stevie later regretted but felt pressured to do. The music was honest and personal, but it flopped. Fewer than 40,000 copies sold. Critics were unimpressed. The label gave up. Suddenly, Stevie found herself cleaning houses and waitressing at Bob's Big Boy to make ends meet. She earned $50 a week, scrubbing the home of producer Keith Olsen. Lindsay picked up studio gigs where he could. They were broke. They shared a 1-bedroom apartment. Meals were cheap, tuna, macaroni, whatever they could afford. Their love was tested, stretched thin under pressure, but somehow still held together by music. Then came a twist of fate. In late 1974, Mick Fleetwood walked into a studio in California. The producer, Keith Olsen, played him a track called Frozen Love from a little-known duo called Buckingham Nicks. The song was long, nearly 7 minutes, but Fleetwood couldn't stop listening. He was blown away by the guitar. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Fleetwood Mac had just lost their guitarist, and they needed someone new. That same night, December 31st, Fleetwood called Lindsey Buckingham. He offered him a spot in the band, but Buckingham said no, not without Stevie. They were a team, a package deal. Fleetwood could have walked away, but instead he said yes to both of them. That moment changed music history. They met for dinner at a Mexican restaurant in Los Angeles that night. On one side sat Fleetwood, John McVie, and Christine McVie. On the other, Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. It was a strange scene. The band was tired, burned out from years of lineup changes. Stevie and Lindsay were broke. Their album had flopped, and they were barely surviving. But something clicked at that table. Christine liked Stevie's style. Fleetwood liked Lindsay's sound. They decided to try it out. A few weeks later, they started rehearsing. That's when the real magic began. Stevie showed up with 2 songs, Rihanna and Landslide. Nobody in the band had heard anything like them. Rihanna was haunting, almost ghost-like. Stevie would spin across the stage in black dresses, singing like she was casting spells. Mick Fleetwood once said watching her was like watching an exorcism. Landslide was even more personal. She wrote it while staring at snow-covered mountains in Colorado, wondering if she should quit music. Those songs hit deep. They didn't just sound good. They felt like truth, and they gave the band something they never had before. Emotion wrapped in poetry. On July 11th, 1975, Fleetwood Mac released their new album. It didn't blow up right away. It entered the Billboard chart at number 183, but it stayed. It climbed week after week for 57 straight weeks, until it finally hit number 1 in September 1976. People couldn't stop playing it. It had hits from everyone: Christine's soft melodies, Lindsay's wild guitar, and Stevie's mystical lyrics. Rihanna, Over My Head, Say You Love Me, Landslide. By 2018, the album sold over 7 million copies in the United States alone. In the UK, it took a while to catch on, but it did, eventually going gold. Fleetwood Mac was now a different band, bigger, better, stronger, but also messier. As their fame grew, so did the pressure. Stevie was becoming a star. Her look, her voice, her vibe. It was everywhere. But fame came with cracks. Her relationship with Lindsay was falling apart. They had been together for years, but now they were fighting all the time. Christine and John McVeigh, who were married when the new lineup started, were also splitting up, and Mac Fleetwood, he found out his wife was cheating on him. Then later had a fling with Stevie himself. It was chaos, but somehow it all fed the music. By 1976, they started recording Rumours. It would take nearly a year. The sessions cost close to $1 million back then, nearly $5 million today. They were fighting, crying, yelling, then walking into the studio and recording some of the most perfect songs ever written. They weren't just writing music, they were writing at each other. Lindsay wrote Go Your Own Way, throwing punches in lyrics like, "Shacking up is all you want to do." Stevie was furious. Every time she sang that on stage, she wanted to kill him. Her response was, "Dreams, soft, smooth, but deadly." Then came the twist in the summer of 1981. Stevie Nicks had just released her first solo album, Belladonna. In its first week, it entered the charts at number 12, the highest debut since Stevie Wonder's Hotter Than July. That alone was big, but then it went further. By September, it hit number 1. It even did better than Fleetwood Mac's Tusk, which had only reached number 4. Just 3 months after release, the album went platinum. By 1990, it had gone quadruple platinum. In the end, it sold over 5 million copies in the U.S. 4 songs pushed Belladonna to the top. Stop Dragging My Heart Around, with Tom Petty, hit number 3. Leather and Lace, with Don Henley, reached number 6. Edge of 17, climbed to number 11. And after The Glitter Fades, reached number 32. Stevie called the album a dream. She said it broke her heart, but gave her the strength to fight for love. It wasn't just a hit album, it was her way into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and she was proud of that, not just for herself, but for the women of the world. Something else began with Belladonna, her signature sound. It came from 2 backup singers who never left her side, Sharon and Lorie Perry. Stevie met Lorie in 1971 after moving to L.A. with Lindsey Buckingham. She found Sharon by chance, singing in a Hawaiian bar in 1977. Stevie said she watched Sharon sing for 30 seconds without blinking. Because Sharon was so into the music, she didn't even notice. That's what Stevie loved. She wanted their voices to answer each other like a call and response. She wanted a female version of Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Over the years, She called them her vocal foundation, and even dedicated an album to them, to Loretta and Sharona, for never leaving me. 2 years after Belladonna, Stevie released The Wild Heart. It came in June 1983, just after Fleetwood Mac's Mirage tour. She was still grieving her best friend Robin Anderson, who had died the year before. That loss changed Stevie and shaped the album. The Wild Heart hit number 5 on the Billboard 200 and stayed there for 7 weeks. It went platinum in 3 months. And by 1993 it had sold over 2 million copies. She brought in big names. Tom Petty wrote a song for her. Mick Fleetwood played on a track. Prince even added a synth part on Stand Back, though uncredited. In 1985, she followed with Rock a Little. It reached number 12 and went platinum within a month. It sold 1 million copies in the U.S. and over 100,000 in the U.K. Songs like Talk to Me hit number 4, I Can't Wait reached number 16, and Has Anyone Ever Written Anything for You became a fan favorite at concerts. While it didn't match her earlier albums in sales, it still ranked among the top 50 albums of 1986. Tom Petty was a major part of her solo journey. He almost gave her a song called Insider, but decided to keep it. He wrote, Stop Dragging My Heart Around for her instead, and it became a massive hit. Later, he wrote, I Will Run to You, just for her second album. Stevie once said Petty was her favorite songwriter. Her duet, Leather and Lace, also had a backstory. It was originally for Waylon Jennings and Jesse Coulter, but they never used it. So Stevie recorded it with Don Henley, and it became another hit. Stevie performed in front of massive crowds. One of the biggest was at the U.S. Festival in 1983. Over 650,000 people were there. She went on Saturday Night Live that same year to perform Stand Back and Nightbird. She didn't return to the show until 2023, 41 years later. But being a solo artist and a member of Fleetwood Mac came with a price. Stevie once said it was a blessing to go back and forth, but it drained her. By the late 80s, things were falling apart. A psychiatrist gave her Klonopin. It was supposed to help her stay calm. Instead, it nearly ruined her life. She called it addiction in a bottle. She lost 8 years to it. Her creativity disappeared. Her passion vanished. She gained weight and hated how she looked. And worst of all, she couldn't write. In 1993, she left Fleetwood Mac. She fell into a fireplay and gashed her head. That was the breaking point. She checked herself into a detox center for 47 days. It was brutal. Her hair turned gray. Her skin peeled. Her legs ached constantly. She called it the hardest thing she ever did. But she knew she had to do it. There was no shortcut. Before Klonopin, there was cocaine. She'd started in the early 70s, but by the late 70s, it was out of control. She had a hole in her nose. She was spending millions on the drug. During concerts, crew members had to keep an eye on her so she wouldn't fall off stage. One night, after a 48-hour drug binge, she forgot to take out her contact lenses. Her corneas were so damaged she had to perform with bandaged eyes. With Joe Walsh from the Eagles, her drug use reached a dangerous level. They would go days without sleep. Eventually, Walsh had to walk away for both their sakes. In 1986, a plastic surgeon told her the next line could kill her. That's when she checked into the Betty Ford Center. It saved her from cocaine, but the doctor who prescribed Klonopin afterward, she never forgave. She said, "He stole years from me, years I could have used to write, to love, to live." Stevie says she survived everything alone. "I saved me," she often repeats. She checked herself into rehab. She fought through the pain. She didn't want anyone's pity. She didn't ask for help. But Tom Petty worried about her. He once admitted, "If the phone rang and they said she died, I wouldn't have been surprised." Her addiction was that bad. And yet, Stevie said there was a time she didn't want to get clean. She called it the white horse, and said she didn't want to get off. Her art suffered. She hated what Klonopin did to her music. She said, "Writers need pain, drama, and emotion, and the drug took all of that away." That's why Street Angel, released in 1994, felt flat to her. She didn't care when she made it. She was numb. The fire was gone. That album didn't do well. She nearly quit music. But after detox, she came back slowly. She said she still uses marijuana now and then when she writes. But she's careful. It helps her create. And it's the one thing she allows herself. Stevie Nicks made a decision in 1983 that even she later called a terrible, terrible mistake. Her best friend, Robin, had just died of leukemia. Robin's baby boy, Matthew, was born 2 days before she passed. In the middle of grief, Stevie married Robin's husband, Kim Anderson. They weren't in love. They were both broken. They thought maybe marriage could help them survive the pain. But it didn't. It lasted just 3 months. After the divorce, they stopped speaking. Years later, Stevie reached out to Matthew. She paid for his college. He grew up and had a daughter. He named her Robin. Stevie became Grandma Stevie. At the height of Fleetwood Mac's fame in 1976, Stevie got breast implants. It was trendy. Everyone told her it was safe. She believed them. For nearly 20 years, she lived with them. Then, in 1994, her health collapsed. She felt tired all the time. Doctors said it was Epstein-Barr virus. They told her the implants had nothing to do with it. But she didn't listen. She had them removed. They were shattered inside her. She later said, "I'm living proof they're not safe." The fatigue didn't go away. It kept coming back. Sometimes it hit her so hard she couldn't sing. Still, she kept performing. She became one of the first stars to speak out against silicone implants. Stevie always seemed like she came from another world. She believed she was beheaded in a past life. Her ballet teacher believed it too. That's why she couldn't tilt her head back at salons. Someone had to hold it. Her style came from fear. In 1975, she was nervous on stage, so she wore flowing black outfits. Lace, velvet, chiffon, 18 pounds of it. She said, "I'll be very sexy, and no one will know who I really am." Her look evolved, but stayed magical. Top hats, shawls, angelic whites, shoulder pads in the 80s. When she sang Rhiannon, people called her a witch. She got letters. Some were scary. She was afraid. But later she said, "I'm all grown up now. I'm fearless." When Stevie joined Fleetwood Mac in 1975, the band asked Christine McVie if she was okay with another woman joining. Christine said yes right away. They clicked instantly. Stevie was flowy and dreamy. Christine was grounded and cool. They never fought. They never competed. Christine once said, "She sings to me on stage every night." Stevie would sing, "I still see your bright eyes," and look straight at her. That was their bond. But everything changed on November 30th, 2022. Christine McVie was gone. Stevie had no idea her closest friend was even sick. She only found out a few days before. By then, it was too late. Christine's family told Stevie not to come. They said, "She may not be here tomorrow." So Stevie stayed home. She never got to say goodbye. Christine died from a stroke, cancer, and heart problems all at once. Stevie had wanted to sing to her one last time. It would have made her die faster, she joked later, trying to hide the pain, but that moment never came. And after that, Stevie said it clearly. Fleetwood Mac couldn't go on. Not without Christine. "There's no reason to," she said. Their bond wasn't just about music. It was something deeper. They had been side by side since 1975, never once fought, never drifted apart. Even if months passed when they saw each other again, it was like no time had passed. Stevie called Christine her musical soulmate and her best friend. Without her, nothing felt right anymore. Even Mick Fleetwood, the band's drummer, admitted it publicly. "The line in the sand has been drawn," he said at the Grammys. "We're done." For Stevie, trying to keep the band alive now would be like pretending its heart hadn't stopped beating, and she wasn't willing to do that. At the very beginning of 2012, that's when I went to do some crazy shows, but truthfully, Stevie had been stepping away long before Christine passed. She was already frustrated with the modern music world. Back in 2017, she refused to make another Fleetwood Mac album. The cost was too high, the energy too much, and the payoff too little. "We're not 40 anymore," she said. "Recording would take a year. Touring would take even more. And in today's world where fans stream for free, making new music didn't make sense. She missed the days when people bought albums, when a song meant something. Now, she felt their work would just disappear into the noise. Their last album came out in 2003. After that, she had enough. It would fall on deaf ears, she said. And then there was Lindsey Buckingham. Their history went back to high school. But their partnership had become a war zone. It all exploded in 2018. After a performance at a benefit show, Stevie gave a speech. Lindsay smirked. That was the final straw. Just days later, he got a call from their manager. "Stevie never wants to be on stage with you again," he was told. Stevie gave the band an ultimatum. Either he goes or she does. They chose her, and she never looked back. In 2024, she said it clearly. "I gave him more than 300 million chances." Her voice shook as she recalled hearing her parents in her head. "It's time for a divorce," they said. When Stevie and Lindsay met again at Christine's memorial, they barely spoke. Stevie Nicks didn't just make music. She made history. On March 29, 2019, she became the first woman ever to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, twice. The first time was with Fleetwood Mac in 1998. The second time, she stood there alone, not just for herself, but for every woman who ever picked up a mic. She looked out into the crowd and said what everyone knew, but never said out loud. Men had been inducted twice, 0 women. That was the moment she kicked down the door. That night, she sang with Don Henley. Harry Styles stood beside her. He called her timeless. He said 1 in 7 people dressed like her on Halloween. That's not just fame. That's legacy. And for Stevie, this moment wasn't about ego. It was about finally getting the recognition that women in rock had been denied for decades. But this story started long before that night. Back in 1977, she helped create Rumours, one of the best-selling albums ever made. It sold tens of millions. Rolling Stone called it the 7th greatest album of all time. Her solo debut, Belladonna, was just as powerful. It gave us Edge of 17, and the song Beyoncé later sampled for Bootylicious. Stevie didn't just inspire singers, she shaped pop culture. Her music was bold, poetic, and honest. She wrote Landslide when she was 27, Rhiannon, after reading a story about a Welsh goddess, and Dreams, Fleetwood Mac's only #1 hit in the United States, in the middle of heartbreak and chaos. As a solo artist, she kept topping charts. Her Stand Back compilation, released during her Hall of Fame moment, featured her most loved tracks, including duets with Don Henley and Tom Petty. Fans loved it. Critics loved it. and the industry finally had no choice but to say it. She was more than a member of a legendary band. She was the legend. Most artists slow down after decades in the business, not Stevie. At 76, she's still on stage, wearing those same black shawls and boots, singing like nothing has changed. She still sells out arenas. Her voice may be softer now, but the power is all there. During a 2023 show, she talked about Christine McVie, her late bandmate. She shared how Christine once told her, "When you're sad, you sing. The crowd will lift you up," and they always do. One of her most unforgettable moments was in 1997, during a Fleetwood Mac reunion. She sang Silver Springs, while staring straight at Lindsey Buckingham. It wasn't just a performance. It was a reckoning. That clip later exploded on TikTok, with over 2.5 million likes. Even Gen Z couldn't look away. Her reach doesn't end with music. She created a look, a mood, a whole era. Chiffon, lace, moonlit stages, Stevie turned it into a brand before branding existed. Her style became bohemian chic, copied by stars, designers, and everyday fans. She was once accused of being a witch because of how she dressed, but instead of fighting it, she made it part of her magic. Other artists couldn't help but follow her lead. Taylor Swift, Sheryl Crow, Vanessa Carlton. Even Eminem once said he loved Rihanna. That's the thing about Stevie. She's not just rock, she's everywhere. The Chicks covered Landslide and brought her into country. Destiny's Child invited her to join their video. She said hanging out with them felt like she belonged.